The intermediate plateau. This is where most people get stuck in language learning. If you actually didn't get stuck at the beginning stage and just quit there. But a lot of people get stuck here, the intermediate plateau. And especially people who have been learning through input. If you've been doing thousands of hours of input, lots of reading, watching videos, listening to podcasts, blah, 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 you probably understand the language pretty well, depending on context. But then when it comes to speaking, you struggle to speak. And also there's still a lot of vocabulary that you don't know. This is where people get stuck, like I said, and I'm going to give you the solution. The two main solutions, actually. I already gave you one. It's vocabulary. People get stuck in the intermediate plateau because they're not learning vocabulary fast enough. If you're just doing input, you keep seeing similar vocab all the time, and after a while, vocabulary becomes less and less frequent, and unless you learn vocabulary deliberately, the process of acquiring more and more words is going to get so slow that you will barely notice any improvement in your vocab, even after hundreds of extra hours of input and months and months of it, and still more or less at the same level. You're going to get really discouraged if this happens to you, and it's going to happen to you if you don't learn vocabulary deliberately. So what I recommend is just taking lists and learning the lists together with more input, obviously. And the other thing is, the other problem, big mistake that most of you are making, is learning too passively. You need to learn actively, and especially you need to use active recall, which means you need to translate into the language and get feedback. Active recall plus feedback is the fastest way to learn anything, including vocabulary and grammar. So you could do this with Anki flashcards. You could do this with a spreadsheet. I use both personally. And I take my language islands, which are the sentences, the high frequency sentences I want to learn first for conversation, and then massive lists of random sentences with all the grammar, all the vocab. And basically I translate into the language and then get feedback. And I do this with hundreds of sentences every day. And I make lots of mistakes and get immediate feedback. And tomorrow I'll remember those sentences much better than I did today. So then you try the same sentences again in a few days. So if you combine this with spaced repetition, you'll get results very fast. This is how you overcome the intermediate plateau. It's a matter of getting out of your comfort zone and doing things that are not fun, but are effective. So lots of vocabulary. You need to learn lots and lots of extra words. And you need to focus on learning vocabulary instead of just casual input, because otherwise it's going to be extremely slow. And retrieval practice or active recall. You translate into the language, you get feedback. You do it with thousands of sentences and obviously thousands of words in those sentences. So this is how you learn vocab and also learn to use the language actively. And if you do this consistently for a few weeks, you'll notice that you're able to say a lot more in the language. You have to think less before speaking. You're able to speak in complete sentences. You know a lot more vocab. And it's hard work, but it works. So yeah, that's it. There's no secret to it. It's just hard work.